seeing me okay, we'll go ahead and get started here. I just need somebody out there in Facebook world to tell me we're live. I'm testing some new technology today. I want to make sure we have everything locked and loaded. Welcome everyone to the extraordinary game of entrepreneurship and how to play it. My name is Chris White. I am the creator of the extraordinary game. I'm excited to have you with us this morning. We're going to get started here in just about 20 seconds. Facebook's setting out their signal to tell everybody we are here. So we're gonna do some cool graphics here, and I will be back in 20 seconds. All right, everybody, welcome back to the extraordinary game of entrepreneurship and how to play it. Could I get a mic check from Cheryl or Don? Could you just tell me you're hearing me? I'm using a new mic today, so I want to make sure I've got everything dialed in here before we dive in. Are you hearing me out there, Cheryl, Don? Those of you who are live, give me a thumbs up or a yes, we can hear you, Chris. I would greatly appreciate it. Awesome. Thanks, Don. Appreciate you. Well, let's go ahead and dive in here. Again, for those of you who are maybe joining us for the first time, again, I want to welcome you into the extraordinary game of entrepreneurship and how to play it. What the heck does that mean anyway? Well, the extraordinary game was designed as the definitive playbook for entrepreneurs on their adventure to achieve health, wealth, and happiness. Okay, that's why we're here. So why listen to me? I mean, who's this guy behind the camera here in Denver, Colorado? It's actually Saturday morning, of course. I'm getting ready to go on a run here. It's raining in Denver. But, you know, when you're getting ready to go on a run, what you call rain is adversity, right? So I'm getting ready to go face some adversity with my family here after the show. But why should you listen to me? Let me make an argument for that, and I would quite simply say it's because, you know, I've been through the fire. Okay, I've lived in the gap of entrepreneurship for 17 years now. I've seen and I've conquered a lot of adversity. Okay, I know what gets you killed in this game of entrepreneurship, and I know what it takes to win. Okay, we just recently put over 6 figures into our bank account here in the last 30 days. I've been the top producer inside of 2 different companies. I'm currently the number 1 producer inside of a real estate investing company. I've surrounded myself, really the secret to my success is really I've just surrounded myself with some very smart people who are a lot smarter than I am, to be quite honest. So I've surrounded myself with them, and I've just done what they've told me to do, and now I'm out in the world empowering other people just like you to do the same. And my vehicle for doing that, for basically sharing with you in a very focused, very regimented, very disciplined way, everything that I've learned around how to build a multiple 6-figure, now 7-figure business on the internet, using my laptop, working from home, in my case right here in Denver, Colorado. I've synthesized all of that down into the extraordinary game of entrepreneurship and how to play it. So there's a quick argument on maybe why you should listen to me. Now, let me make the argument, why do you need the extraordinary game of entrepreneurship and how to play it? Okay, I talked about the answer to this question on Monday. Okay, so in Monday's show, we talked about the problem. Okay, so what's the problem? The problem is most people are looking out at their year in the wrong way. Most people, before we even get to that, most people are focused on the wrong things. Most people get so wound up around tactics instead of focusing on the strategy of execution. Okay, so my argument here today, what I've been arguing all week, for those of you who are here for the first time, I just want to go through a summary of what happened, what I'm calling our Saturday rewind of what happened over the course of the week. And the first thing we started out talking about is that most people have an execution challenge. Okay, now I coach entrepreneurs all over the world. Just in the last week, I've talked to people from the UK. I've talked to many people from Canada. Of course, I talk to people from the US every day. I've talked to people from Australia and New Zealand just in the last couple weeks. All right. And the biggest challenge entrepreneurs are facing who are struggling, who are not achieving the goals they want to achieve, is an execution challenge. Now, what most people think they're facing is the challenge of how to generate leads, how to maybe prospect and close, how to set up a website. A lot of people think they have a money challenge, or people think they have a time challenge. People think they have a relationship challenge. They're not connected to the right people. Now, let me pause and say, are all those things valuable? Do all those things empower you inside of your business to play your game of entrepreneurship at a high level? Absolutely. I leverage all of those things that I just mentioned. But the most critical of all things is execution. If you don't develop the skill of execution, you will never reach peak potential inside of your business or inside of your life. And so the extraordinary game of entrepreneurship and how to play it is founded on execution. Okay, so we're going to be talking about lead generation and sales and marketing and technology and all of those things, but the foundation of everything we do is based on execution. Okay, so that's the problem. That's what we talked about on Monday. On Tuesday, we talked about the one discipline that extraordinary people do every day. Okay, and that one discipline is that extraordinary people have a playbook. Okay, this is some people refer to this as a journal. You can see here a season that I ran on my own. I had my big goal here was $100,000 in profit in the bank. Okay, and so we did that. We did that. But the point is, this is your playbook. What extraordinary people do every day is they get into their playbook and they look at the plays that they're running in the game that day. Okay, so we're using the analogy here of a game, and I'm a big fan of the NFL, and I'm a fan of studying coaches and how they build and motivate teams to execute at a high level. And if you were to get into and start studying like the best of the best out there, like say Bill Belichick, for example, the New England Patriots, you start to see that a guy like that lives a very disciplined life that is focused on the day-to-day. And one of the things that high-performing coaches, high-performing people do is they have a playbook for everything they do in their life. And this playbook guides them every single day. Okay, so what I want to anchor in your mind today is that I want to encourage you to live in the now. Okay, live in the now. And the playbook is powerful because the science has proven that there's something very powerful that happens in our brains when we connect pen to paper, as opposed to typing things out on the computer. Okay, so there's a difference here. We're not talking about keeping an online playbook. You can do that if you want, but I would also encourage you to have a playbook that you write in. Okay, so we talked about that on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we talked about how top performers structure their year. This is where most people are really holding themselves back, and it's how they're looking at their year. It's a concept that Brian Moran, who's a high performance expert, refers to as annualized planning. This is the wrong way to look at your year, right? And it's what most people do. We've all been there. The year is ending. We're getting ready for the new year. We're going to have the greatest year ever. And our thinking starts to focus on 12 months. Our thinking starts to focus on 12 months. Now, I want you to understand the biggest, fastest way to have breakthroughs in your life is through your thinking. Okay, most people will focus on their actions. They'll wake up and they'll think, oh, today's going to be my day, and they'll start creating a to-do list, and they're just going to go take more action faster. That's how most people think. What I'm challenging you to do here inside the extraordinary game of entrepreneurship is to understand that in order to create the biggest breakthroughs in your business, you got to start with your thinking. Okay, so this is a thinking challenge for you, which is to surrender the annualized plan, surrender that plan to focused on what's called a periodization. Okay, this Olympic athletes train under the concept of periodization, which is where they look at their schedule 4 to 6 weeks out, and then they get laser focused on 1 to 2, maybe 3 skills, and they just focus all of their energy and effort, just like a laser beam, right in on those things, and they stay in the moment. They look at their schedule on a daily and a weekly basis. They plan out, they have a vision for their year, but their focus, their execution is in the here and the now. Every moment counts. Okay? So here's how we're going to look at periodization. And this is really the foundation of where this whole concept of the extraordinary game of entrepreneurship and how to play it came from. The way we're going to look at this is like a 16-week season. Okay? Our periodization is going to be 16 weeks. And so the way I've structured the extraordinary game is into 4 different sections of time. The first section of time is what we're in right now. This is the preseason. Okay, the preseason is going to last 2 weeks. We are now in day 6. Okay, the preseason is all about getting your mind right and planning and preparing for the season. Okay, the season is going to be 12 weeks. We're going to start the season a week from this coming Monday. And we're going to push hard for 12 weeks by focusing in the now to execute on some high-level priorities that we set for ourselves, that we're going to capture inside of our playbook. Okay, now I've broken the season down into the regular season, which is the first 8 weeks, and then the preseason, the last 4 weeks. Now I've done that because what I've discovered in coaching people, coaching new entrepreneurs, is people tend to get overwhelmed as they're learning new things. And even in a 12-week cycle, it's easy to self-sabotage and quit on yourself because you feel like, I got behind on my goals. When in reality, it's impossible to get behind. I've got a mentor who always says, you are right where you need to be. Okay, so it's impossible to get behind, but in order to help combat that, I've broken it down into the 8-week season and then the postseason, just like they do in the NFL, right? You got the season and you got all the teams that go into the postseason, and the postseason is always different than the season. Okay, so there are some things we will do to shift our mind going into the postseason to really make sure we get maximum productivity in those last 4 weeks of the season where we're executing at a high level. Okay, so that takes us through 14 weeks, and then we've got 2 weeks on the end of that, which we call the off season. What do we do in the off season? We rest, we recharge, we celebrate our victories from the season. We assess the things that we could do better from the season. And we get ready to go into the next cycle of periodization, the next extraordinary game, the next season, by starting in the preseason again. So if you do the math on this, 14 weeks, that's 3 seasons during the course of a calendar year. That's 48 weeks. You might be wondering, well, what about the other 4 weeks? Where did those go? I've left those alone to serve as what I'll call the oops factor. It's the fudge factor. It's the time that you get to use in your schedule where maybe you get sick or life gets in the way. Okay, so I want to really try to protect you from this mindset of perfectionism. We always want to understand what it looks like to be perfect in whatever it is we're doing, just so we can challenge ourselves. But we have to protect our minds in understanding there's no such thing as achieving perfection. Okay, and we don't even need to achieve perfection, is maybe the better way to say it. We're looking at the 80-20 principle. Okay, let's get it 80% to perfect, and let's drive on. Okay, maybe we push that into the 90%. But let's not sabotage ourselves by trying to wait to do anything until we get it perfect. Okay, so we talked about that on Wednesday. That's how high performers structure their year. On Thursday, we talked about a framework for working inside of your season, of the 16-week season. We talked about a high performers framework that I referred to, and I am referring to, as the Game Changers Grid. Okay, so this is the framework I've created from going through many seasons on my own, kind of testing this in the lab in my own business. This is what I've used to crush out, multiple six-figure months in my business, and I call it the Game Changers Grid. Okay, so the foundational principle here is that you are either living by default or you are living by design. It's one or the other, but you're always living by one of those two. Like today, your day is either going to happen by design or it's going to happen by default. Okay, now what we know is that high performers always live by design. And every moment counts in a high performer's mind. Every moment counts in a high performer's mind. And so I've created what I call the Game Changers Grid to help me, to empower me to live by design. And that's what we're going to use inside of the extraordinary game of entrepreneurship and how to play it. And quite simply, the Game Changers Grid, it's an acronym, okay, and it stands for goals, it stands for routines, it stands for inner game, your mental game, your emotional intelligence, right? And it stands for, the D stands for DNA. That's like your ethos. That's like what makes you you, like what's your strengths? You have to understand your strengths, your weaknesses, your passions, what drives you, so that you can position yourself in the game to play at high performance, and then you can surround yourself with other players in the game who can help you where you don't want to play the game, perhaps. Okay, so this is the Game Changers Grid. When you think about the grid and living by design, I like to think about the analogy of a skyscraper, right? I use the skyscraper analogy because, the skyscraper is the most extraordinary building there is, right? So I want to challenge you to imagine what your skyscraper would look like, what your skyscraper is going to look like, okay? And I want you to envision putting that skyscraper in New York City and people walking down the street and just looking up at your skyscraper just in awe. Like, it's such an extraordinary building. Your building is such an extraordinary building. Like, there are no words to even describe it. This is what I'm challenging you to believe is already inside you. The extraordinary game of entrepreneurship and the Game Changers Grid is going to help us draw that out. Okay, and we're going to build an extraordinary skyscraper that represents you. Okay, that only people who are looking at it, the only thing they can say is, wow. Right? Just there's no other. They can't get the words out because they don't know what word there is to describe how extraordinary this structure is that you've created. Now, here's the linchpin to the analogy. The linchpin is, how do you build a skyscraper? Well, one, you got to have a grid, right? You got to have a blueprint if you're an architect. Could you imagine an architect going to the construction company and saying, we're not going to use a blueprint on this skyscraper. You know what? Just get the backhoe out there. Let's just dig a hole. Let's just start building. It'll be fun. It'll be fun, right? They would never do that. They'd get laughed at, sued, that you would ultimately end up with no skyscraper. And this is why most people struggle in the game of entrepreneurship, because they are living by default rather than by design. They don't have a grid. Okay, so once you've got the grid, the linchpin then is you've got to do what? What's the first thing you got to do? You got to start digging down into the ground, right? When you're building a skyscraper, everyone just wants to see the skyscraper, right? Everybody wants to look out at, maybe people look at me, for example, and they compare themselves to me and don't realize, hey, I've been digging for a while. I've lived in the gap. I'm still in the gap because I'm taking my skyscraper I'm putting more floors on that baby, right? But when you're just getting started, you got to dig down into the ground, and guess what you have to do? The higher that skyscraper is, the deeper you got to dig, right? The deeper you got to dig, and if you were to stand back from that hole and you were to look across the horizon, you wouldn't even see the hole if you were far enough away, right? You wouldn't even see the hole. And so this is what most people are doing, and that's why they're struggling, because they're so far away from the hole, they don't have perspective. And all they're seeing is somebody else's skyscraper. Maybe it's mine, maybe it's some other successful entrepreneur, and they're just looking at the skyscraper, and the perspective is off. You got to get up to the hole, you got to get into the hole, and you got to dig. You got to get muddy, you got to get dirty, you got to sweat, you got to get down to the bedrock, where you're going to put that foundation, and then what do you got to do? You got to pound in the cornerstone. What's the purpose of the cornerstone in the foundation of a building? The cornerstone is what everything is aligned off of when you're building the skyscraper. If that cornerstone is off, the building is off. That cornerstone is off, you're not gonna have a skyscraper. So you got to get that cornerstone anchored in, and then you build from there. What's the cornerstone? The cornerstone is gonna be it's really gonna be the vision that you have inside of your business. And that's going to drive everything. That's going to drive the goals, the routines, the inner game, the DNA. It's going to be your vision. Okay, and we talked about that on Friday. The anchor that the top performers use to achieve greatness is their vision. You know, and again, I could say that the cornerstone, the anchor that top performers use to achieve greatness is their vision. You got to anchor that vision in, and then you can start building. Okay. Now, part of the homework for everybody in the first week, and if you're here with us new for the first time, you got to get your playbook, number one, and you got to get your vision into the playbook. Now, why is the vision so powerful? The vision is powerful because the vision is the emotional anchor. It's the emotional anchor that's going to empower you to face and overcome any adversity, any challenge that we are going to face when we move into the season. Okay, so imagine we're going into battle. The vision is the most powerful weapon you can have with you as we go into the battle. I always like to say that the strongest steel must go through the hottest fire. If you think about it, right? You want strong steel? What do you got to do? Turn up the heat. You want strong steel? What do you got to do? Bring on the adversity. Same thing here in the game of entrepreneurship. We have to have the courage to brave the fire. But it's not just about courage, it's about being wise. It's about being wise. When you get into the fire, you want to have the vision there that's going to fuel your courage, that's going to fuel your bravery, that's going to empower you to push through. So what I'm really, really empowering all of you to do is to take this seriously. You know, what I'll be doing today is I'll be going down to a coffee shop, probably for a couple hours, and all I'm going to think about is my vision. Now, in the back of my head, I've got all these other things I want to work on, right? All these tactical things I'm working on that emotionally I have to battle because they feel like the things I need to do. And I feel like, oh, I'm going to be getting behind if I don't get those things done. But what you have to understand is the vision is the cornerstone of the skyscraper. The vision. And then I want to encourage you to avoid perfectionist mindset. This is where a lot of people get stuck with vision is, oh, is my vision good enough? Like, I don't know. And they get overwhelmed by this idea of creating a vision. When it comes to vision, just think 12 weeks out. Where do you want to be in 12 weeks? Just think about that vision for now. If you want to go 12 months out, you can go 12 months out, but we're going to focus and execute inside the 12-week season that we're getting ready to go into. Okay, so that's what we covered over the first week here inside of the extraordinary game of entrepreneurship and how to play it. Now, I'm excited to say we had 85 people jumped into the extraordinary game of entrepreneurship with us. So those 85, hey, I want to say congratulations. It's awesome to have you on the inside with us. If you're watching this and you haven't gotten into the extraordinary game of entrepreneurship yet and how to play it, you can go over to facebook.com/groups. And I believe I put that link above this video, but facebook.com/groups/extraordinary game. It's free to join. You can jump into the game with us, get caught up, right? We're still in the preseason. We got another week at the preseason coming, and then we're going to jump into the season. Okay, so there's still plenty of time. Get in the game, get focused, get your playbook, get your vision into the playbook, and start thinking about living your life by design rather than by default. Start thinking about exercising those execution muscles, right? Because that's what we're doing. We're going to exercise this execution muscle during the first season. And then you know what we're going to do after that? We're going to go into season 2 and we're going to exercise the muscle again. And then season 3, and I can promise you, we get 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons into this thing, you are going to be absolutely unstoppable if you make the decision to make a commitment to being extraordinary in your business. Okay, so just some quick operational issues here. If you missed any of the full episodes from this past week, you can go over to our YouTube channel and you can see all the replays of those episodes. So all you got to do is go over to extraordinarysociety.com/YouTube. And I put the link to that above this video as well. Click on that link. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel so we can very easily get you updates as we're posting new and valuable content. So even if you were with us this past week and you saw all the videos, click on that link and just subscribe to the channel. That way we can continue to get you the value over the course of the extraordinary game of entrepreneurship as we move forward, just so you don't miss anything. Okay? So make sure to do that. Make sure to get into the private Facebook group. Let me close. Oh, and if you are new, write in your schedule. We meet every day of the week at 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, so just put that into your calendar. Put a little reminder for you. Typically, these go 15 minutes or less. We're going a little bit longer today because I wanted to give you a summary of the week. Okay, I want to get you caught up if you need to be caught up. So let me just close by, let me just say, thanks for your trust. Sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, thanks for your trust, for being here. I want you to know I don't take your trust for granted. It's the most valuable thing. It's the thing I value most when it comes to our relationship is your trust. And I want you to know that I've got a powerful, capable team behind the scenes that's working with me to help provide this experience to you, to help you play your game of entrepreneurship at an extraordinary level. So I speak for them as well. We thank you for your trust. We don't take it for granted. We are working hard behind the scenes to provide you the most laser-focused, empowering, extraordinary experience that we can so that you can actually achieve results. And that's probably one of the biggest ways we're different than everything else out there. We are very laser-focused in, committed in on a specific course of action that we're going to execute over the coming weeks to help you put in that first, second, third, maybe fifth to 10th floor of your skyscraper. And that's how I want you to look at this. In this first season, we're going to dig the foundation. We're going to start building that thing. And we're going to get maybe the first couple floors in. And then we're going to celebrate, take a break. Then we're going to come back to the next season. We're going to start putting the next floors in. And what I'm hopeful here is going to happen for you is you're going to start to develop this method of operation around how you live your life as an entrepreneur. That's really the ultimate goal here, is that this becomes part of your ethos. This mindset of playing the 16-week season becomes part of your ethos, part of your DNA. It just becomes part of who you are, and you just get into this method of operation over the course of the next 10, 20, 30 years where you are just a well-oiled machine, just knocking home runs out of the park every single day, because now you are executing like top performers execute. Okay? And then I'll say it in closing here, what I always say, which is, I love all of you, not in a weird way, but I really do love all of you sincerely from the bottom of my heart. I am in the trenches with you. I am for you. I am praying for you. I am fighting for you emotionally when we're creating these trainings and the camera's off, and I'm sitting here in my own fire and facing my own adversity, frustrated with all these books I got on my shelf and all the research I'm doing, trying to bring you the best of the best of the best, testing things in my own business, failing, learning from those things. Like, that's my game of adversity that I play so that I can show you that I really do love you. And that's what I mean by that is I love you when the camera's off with how I play the extraordinary game of entrepreneurship in my life. Okay, so, and let me close with an extraordinary thought for the day. Okay, this is something you want to write down in your playbook, put it up here, and the extraordinary thought is this: you are right where you are now, because where you are now is exactly where you want to be. Think about that. You are right where you are now, because where you are now is exactly where you want to be. So the question is, where do you want to be? Everything can change for you, my friend, by first making a decision. And it all starts with your thinking. Your thinking is the fastest way to create big breakthroughs in your business. This is why I say spend some time today thinking about your vision. Don't sit in front of your computer and do tactical things. Spend some time getting your vision into your playbook. That's the fuel that's going to drive you, empower you, and protect you on the adventure when we get into the season, which is going to be a full contact sport. Okay? You are right where you are now because right where you are now is exactly where you want to be. Be accountable to that truth, and your success is 100% guaranteed. My friends, thank you again for being here. I know there's a lot of other places you could be on a Saturday morning, a lot of other places you can invest your time. Thanks for your trust. I don't take it for granted. I'm excited to see you next time right here inside of the extraordinary game of entrepreneurship and how to play it. I will see you then tomorrow, same time. We'll look forward to the week to come. Hey, be extraordinary today in your thinking and go have some fun. Bye for now.